In 1975, the very first social networking was introduced, email, that we still use today. Social networking has advanced a lot since this time, advancing to include things like sharing pictures and posts when things like MySpace and later Facebook came along. Technology enriches our lives in many ways, keeps us more connected than ever before, and helps us with daily tasks. The Pew Research Center found in February 2019 that 90% of adults aged 19 to 29 were active on at least one social media site. We live in a world driven by technology, but if you've ever found yourself mindlessly scrolling through Twitter, Instagram, or whatever your social media of choice is, hour after hour, you might be asking yourself if this is doing me more harm than it's doing me good. Well, I'm an active social media user and I've asked myself this exact same question. I've also done some qualitative research onto this subject, and last year I surveyed over 100 UT girls on questions relating to social media usage and negative effects like loneliness, fear of missing out, depression, anxiety, and all of that good stuff that I will be referencing later. The 3 reasons social media is harmful are feelings of addiction, lowering your self-esteem, and negative emotions like anxiety and depression. So let's jump in with the first point, starting with addiction. When most people hear the word addiction, they think of drugs or alcohol. But addictions can also be behaviors, as is the case in social media addicts. Checking and scrolling on social media has become an important part in a lot of our daily routines. When you first wake up in the morning, what's the very first thing you do? For most of us, it's reaching for our phones. And for a majority of us, this behavior isn't disruptive. However, an article posted by addictioncenter.com in December 2019 points out that psychologists estimate between 5 to 10% of US adults qualify as having a social media addiction. And this is characterized as being driven by an uncontrollable urge to use social media and by spending so much time on social media that it takes away from other important life areas. A 2017 study conducted by the Royal Society for Public Health in the UK, surveying young people, found that social media is more addictive than cigarettes and alcohol. This can largely be contributed to the large dopamine hit our brains get from every like, post, or comment on these sites that keeps us coming back for more. Many of my own friends lately, being driven to boredom by self-quarantining, have expressed frustration as they feel they spend most of their days rotating between social media apps in an effort to entertain themselves. Now that we've looked at how addictive social media can be, let's look at how we can lower our self-esteem. Another negative effect of social media is making you feel dissatisfied with yourself. Behavioral scientist Stanley Coppersmith defined self-esteem in his 1967 book, The Antecedents of Self-Esteem, as a person's positive or negative evaluation of their self, and to the extent they find themselves worthwhile and competent. Whether intentionally or not, humans seem hardwired to compare ourselves with our peers. J.V. Wood did research into this, published in 1989, and found that upward social comparison is when we compare ourselves to superior others with positive characteristics, and downward social comparison is comparing ourselves to inferior others that have negative characteristics. And although social comparison can be beneficial when it's motivational, it can also lead us to feeling incompetent about ourselves. And when you do this comparison constantly, it can really impact your self-esteem over time. The lines are also easily blurred between positive and negative social comparisons, and what may be found as motivational to some may be found shameful to others. Around the year 2012, when I was an active user on the networking site Tumblr, I stumbled across a niche group of bloggers known as Pro-Ana, or basically pro-anorexia, that shared tips on fasting, harsh restrictions on weight loss, and would circulate pictures of very skinny girls as the inspiration. Now, this may be an extreme example, but social comparisons on a smaller scale happen all the time. I myself will frequently find myself spending hours on Instagram looking at picture after picture of beautiful, perfect looking girls and wondering why I don't look like that. And I'm not alone. A study done in May 2011 by Haferkamp and Kramer found that people who do social comparisons on social media evaluate their current self as more discrepant from their ideal self. So basically, the more you compare yourself to someone you find successful, the more likely you are to find yourself falling up short by comparison. Now that we understand how social media can affect our self-esteem, let's look at how it correlates with things like anxiety and depression. The Child Mind Institute is an excellent source of information on this and contains some great statistics. They found in multiple studies that teens and young adults who spend a lot of time on social media were 13 to 66% more likely to report depressive symptoms than those who spend the least amount of time on social media. And it is important to keep in mind the difference between correlation and causation. Just because there is a correlation doesn't mean social media is causing depression. However, more studies done into the rise of smartphone usage find that it rises in tandem with links to depression. San Diego State University psychologist Jean Twenge made a shocking correlation. The rise in depressive symptoms correlates with smartphone adoption, even when matched up year by year. This can be caused by several things, one of which is FOMO, the fear of missing out, which is one of the most common negative side effects of social media. And it's kind of a catch-22 because the more you use social media, the more likely you are to see someone having more fun than you, which is exactly what causes FOMO. I also included a pie chart here from the survey I did last year on over 100 UT students. And I asked them whether they believed there was a correlation between high social media usage and depression and anxiety. And 64% of them said yes. Alexandra Hamlet, clinical psychologist at the Child Mind Institute, warns that the less connected you are with humans in a deep, empathetic way, the less you're really getting benefits of social interaction. And the more superficial these interactions are, the less likely that they're going to cause you to feel connected, which is something that we all need. A study published July 2017 titled Social Media Use and Perceived Social Isolations Among Young Adults in the US conducted on approximately 1,800 young adults and concluded that those with high social media usage seem to feel more socially isolated than those with less social media usage. This could be because we spend less time connecting in real life than previous generations. In summary, I hope you now have a clear understanding of the 3 reasons social media is harmful, including addiction, lowering your self-esteem, and causing feelings of depression and anxiety. There can be benefits to social media, but like most things, it can be dangerous when you overconsume it. And what classifies as overconsumption can vary wildly from person to person. But if you find yourself feeling insecure, drained, or anxious after using social media, it may be time for a cleanse. Delete your social media apps and focus instead on meaningful, in real life interactions, and you'll find yourself a lot more fulfilled. Thank you.